Hello and welcome back. Today's guest is one of my oldest friends. It's Dale Wallington, and he and I set off traveling the world together at 18, and we've lived in multiple countries together and been through quite a few scrapes as well. The main reason I wanted to bring Dale onto the podcast is because one of the things that we share is in our mid-20s, both of us felt lost. We felt like we didn't have direction. It caused both of us self-confidence and mental health issues as well. And I know so many people in this day and age with all the options to choose from find themselves lost, not knowing how to get started or where to turn. So neither of us are perfect by any means, but we have crossed that first hurdle in your 20s of picking something, finding a purpose, finding a direction, and starting to fulfill our potentials as well. So I wanted to get him to share some insights from his point of view on that, and I'll obviously share some of mine. I really hope that you guys enjoy the episode, and if I could just ask one favor, if you could please drop a like, a follow, or a subscribe on whatever platform that you're following on. I am very shallow, and likes are all that matter to me. Thank you so much. Big D Wazza. How are you?
Very well, Tom. How are you, mate?
I'm good. So, for those of you who don't know, Dale is one of my best friends who I've known since I was about 16. We set off traveling together at around 18, 19.
Yeah, just after 20, I think, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we've been through some journeys. We've lived in quite a few different countries. We've done quite a few different jobs. And at 25, we went to university together as two mature students.
That makes us sound right. Yeah.
Give a little bit of your background of where you are now.
Sure. Yeah, if you asked me where I would be 3 years ago and I told you now, I'd probably laugh. Got into a very, very good relationship. Moved to Portugal to make it like a really good base for me. Ended up buying a house. And then I guess the biggest change is that I have a baby, have a 1.5-year-old son and a beautiful dog. So there's a bit more, don't want to use the word baggage, but a bit more responsibilities now than I had a few years ago. But yeah, in a very, very good place right now.
And what are you doing for work?
I'm doing a couple of things. So I have a travel company. It's called Renegade Surf Travel. We run coaching trips in the Maldives. So from March until October, we're on a boat sailing around the Indian Ocean, coaching people how to surf, intermediate surfers. And then when I'm not doing that, or alongside that, I should say, I run an online coaching company called BTY Coaching. We train people who know how to train online. So we provide them with the program, we provide them with accountability and the knowledge that a coach brings remotely.
So let's go back to 18. We've just left college. Neither of us were ready for university at the time and set off traveling. Why do you think we went down that route?
Couple reasons. I think firstly, I was able to see that most people went to uni because it was the expected thing to do, even though they didn't have an idea of what they wanted to do. And I really did not have an idea what I wanted to do. I had absolutely no idea. So the thought of going and studying something really generic, like I had friends that did geography or something like that, didn't really appeal to me. The other reason was that they just reintroduced the £9,000 tuition fees like the year before we could have went, right? So that kind of put me off a little bit. And the third reason, strangely, was, I don't think I've ever mentioned this much, but I really didn't want to leave my mum at the time. That really gave me like a lot of stress because she was single a little bit before I should have gone to uni. And it would have meant that I would have left her alone. I would have left her alone. Which I'd seen my sister do 6 years before and how much it hurt. So that kind of was a reason. Fortunately, she did end up ending a partner who's now a husband just before that. So that kind of eradicated. But the lead up to uni, maybe 16, 17 and a half, that was like a big reason I thought, fuck, I can't really go here. I can swear, right?
So you went to Australia.
So that I actually ended up going to Australia a year after that.
Right.
So I worked at home when I was 18 for like a year, saved up some cash. And then I left when I guess I felt like, okay, Peter's looking after her now. It's good to go.
Why did you pick traveling?
For many reasons. I'd say the first reason is that my main passion is surfing. So to escape the UK and surf warm waves in much better quality waves was always a big appeal. And the other reason is that I've never really felt like myself in the UK, as kind of strange as that sound. I think a few people that I've met on the road can relate to this, that when I go home, I just don't feel like myself. It's very, very strange. I don't tend to click with people as well. I feel really tired. I feel quite the weather really affects me there. Like if it's grey all day, I really, really struggle, as first world problem as that sounds. I can remember being about 14, because I was definitely at secondary school, and a mate asked me if I could change one thing about myself, what would it be? Which is quite a deep question from a 14-year-old boy to one another. And I'd actually just got back from a trip with my dad, and I was like, probably my nationality. And I knew that at 14. And I've got nothing against Brits. Like I love going home and spending time with people there, but any extended time, I'm like, I'm pretty ready to leave here.
You get restless.
Restless might be the word, yeah. I just feel really unproductive. I don't work as well. Yeah, I'm not sure what the reason is there. There's some sort of deeper cause, but I've known it for quite a long time, yeah.
And how long would you say you were traveling for?
So left, yeah, just after my 19th birthday, I think. No, before my 19th birthday, sorry. And then traveling's a tough one, right? Because a lot of it was working or remote work, where I was doing kind of seasonal jobs. So it didn't really feel like work or travelling at the time, but I didn't really settle again per se until we went to uni in 2019. So that was a good 6-7 years, yeah.
What do you think has changed about you having spent that much time having to fend for yourself in new countries around the world?
I guess in the younger years, it made you very, very, you could look after yourself really, really easily. Like it forced you to, right? If you're the other side of the world and you don't have that support network, you're forced to. I think it makes me click with people that I'm aligned with really, really easily. Like having met so many people from different backgrounds and countries and being able to know a little bit about what their life is like at home, it makes me gel quite easily. Even where I live now, you probably saw, we had breakfast earlier, Germans there, Spanish there, like there's a very, very expaty community. So that really helps as well. I'd say, yeah, those are the main two things.
The interesting thing, which I relate to as well, is when you go traveling and you live in all of these different places with all these different people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, you realize how many different people there are out there and how many people there are that are actually quite aligned with you.
Yeah.
And when you grow up in a small town, you have a relatively small pool to pick from, right? And you try and force yourself into the groups that are available. And if it doesn't feel like it fully clicks, you can end up feeling like you're a bit of an outcast or feeling like, as you put it, England wasn't your country.
No.
But when you go traveling, and stay in hostels and stuff like that, you rotate through the amount of people that you meet, and you could meet as many people that you went to school with in the space of a week by staying in a couple of different hostels.
Yeah, true.
And it's so quick that you realize that you're not an outcast by nature. You just didn't grow up with people that were that similar to you.
Absolutely.
And spending this time away can help you find them.
For sure. And the fact that when you meet these people, generally you're all in quite a vulnerable place as well. If you've just landed in Australia and you don't know anyone, you're in an environment that's going to breed being able to connect with people a bit more quickly because you've got that kind of similar thing going on. So I think that really, really helps. Like there's people that I've spent maybe 3 days with out of my entire life that I still chat to on a monthly basis. You know, I still catch up with them, as opposed to my friends that I went to school with that maybe I'm not really, now I'm older, that I realize, yeah, they were great friends at the time, but we don't have anything in common now. Like we catch up once a year, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. When you're staying in hostels, especially, like we went traveling together and we met some great people while we were doing it. But traveling solo, I find that you meet a lot more people because you don't have that one consistent person by your side.
Yeah.
So you feel the need to integrate. And a lot of people ask me about it and say, do you not get lonely? And there is that element, right? Because you're changing through.
Yeah.
But it's so different when it comes to socializing than it is in a hometown.
Yeah.
Like in a hometown, if you were just to go up and approach a group of strangers, be like, hey, how's it going? They'd probably be like, what are you doing? But when, as you say, when everyone's in the same boat and they're all traveling and they're all in a place of vulnerability, it makes it so much easier to find connection.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the feelings I miss most actually about traveling, like, is the anticipation of rocking up to a new town and thinking, I might meet someone that I fall in love with here, someone that I might chat to every week for the rest of my life. Like, when you're choosing a place to stay, I used to always have the foresight to think, it's actually quite a big decision. Like, of course, you can't visualize what's going to happen, but the difference between clicking this hostel on Hostelworld and that hostel on Hostelworld could be life-changing, which is quite a strange way to think about it. But yeah, I loved that feeling before rocking up to a new place.
It's huge. So why did you stop the backpacking life and go to university?
As we were discussing last night, it can just run a bit dry. It just gets a bit thin in the end. Living out of a backpack is really fun when you're, well, not even when you're younger, it could be at any age, but eventually you require a little bit more consistency, a little bit more structure, a bit more, I guess, responsibility. I mean, maybe some people don't have that pattern in their brain where they think, okay, it's time to settle down a bit. And I had really good jobs when I was away. I managed to save up loads of money, which is pretty rare for backpacking. But there was always a little voice in the back of my head that said, maybe it's an insecurity, but it said, you haven't been to uni. You're definitely more than smart enough to. Like, I was one of the smartest in my year group at college, and that voice just ran true pretty much every time university check-in time would come, September. The months prior, I'd be thinking, I should probably be applying this year. Like, it wasn't even parental pressure. There was no pressure from my parents in any way. It was internally. And I guess a little bit of, what would be the word? Just not feeling good enough that when I was applying for jobs, this person might have a degree, even though they weren't as qualified for me, that might give them the edge. And that did play on my mind a lot.
It's that feeling of unfulfilled potential.
Yeah.
And I know that you are one of the smartest people that I know, and we both hit 24, 25, and we had a lot of experience, but not a lot of qualification.
Not on paper, no.
No serious time in any job.
No.
You were surf coaching for quite a lot of it, but and I was fluttering around from thing to thing, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I always felt like I would be rich somehow. And 7 years of backpacking wasn't going to lead me there.
Probably not.
And I thought the world was just going to hand me a living. And I kind of realized that it wasn't. And university was never really on the horizon for me. But I was so lost at 24, 25 that when you were like, I'm just going to go and get a degree, what better is there to do right now? You were right. And I followed. We smashed out in 2 years, getting a degree. And I'd say you're using your degree, right? Because you're managing 2 of your own businesses.
Yeah. So the degree was business management. It was a fast track, so you could do it in 2 years instead of 3, as you know. That was a big appeal because I didn't want to spend, as little time in England as I could, right? So the fact you could fast track it was really appealing. And yeah, business management is a bit of a strange one because you're kind of changing the way you think, I believe. You're not learning medicine where you're learning how to do a specific surgery, or dentistry where you're learning how to do an implant. It's more changing the way you think about managing a business and business in general. So did I learn much? It's really, really hard to say. We did well. We both got good degrees, but I guess deep down it has given me that confidence to think, okay, I do know what I'm doing here, and to start 2 businesses there. Yeah.
So no regrets?
No, the reason I don't regret it, as you know, is because it came at a very, very good time. It couldn't have actually been at a better time, as strange as that sounds. COVID came around 6 months into the degree. We were able to travel-ish during COVID. We went overseas and we did it all remotely. Because we were pretty done after 6 months in the UK anyway. Like, through winter, it was bleak. We had some good friends, but we were definitely like the older crew, obviously. And we weren't really there to go and get fucked up every week like most of the people at uni in first year. So we were a bit lonely, to be honest, weren't we? Like, we had a little bit of a crew, but we were ready to get out.
Just me, you, and a nightmare housemate.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Sounds like a book.
Yeah, it does. So the thing that I want to touch on there, that I think that we can share, is the fact that we hit our mid-20s. I would say we're both people that had unrealized potential, but had no direction. And Jordan Peterson, I get in trouble for quoting him because he's such a politically diversifying figure these days. But he says, if you don't know what to do, just pick something and do it. And even if it turns out that was the wrong thing, at least when you realize and then you realign for the next one, you've got wealth and you've got experience behind you from it. And for me, I'm not really working in business management at the moment. It's quite different from financial management.
Yeah.
But what else could I have done at 25? Because you're not just going to find your passion by looking through a book and just picking something. You need to be doing something to realize what's for you. Yeah.
I think if you hadn't have picked that, you were managing a bar or something at the time, you'd probably still be doing that. Or you might have gone to a different bar with slightly better salary, but you would have got comfy there. And it's nothing wrong with that. It's a good career, but there was plenty of, as you say, unreserved potential, unfulfilled potential. So yeah, I like that about picking something. I think the worst thing you can do if you are feeling a bit stuck is just to stay exactly what you're doing. Even though that's the safest choice, a ship isn't safest in the harbour.
I don't think that's the expression.
That is a quote.
How would you say your mental health was at that point in your life?
At uni?
Just before.
Yeah, it's just, as you alluded to, this feeling of being lost. And feeling that everyone else had their shit together and was doing stuff and maybe getting onto careers and probably getting into decent relationships and stuff, which I wasn't at the time. Just feeling a bit left behind, which I found quite hard to deal with, having always been a bit ahead of the curve a little bit with regards to academics and stuff like that. And I just couldn't see where, I was looking for someone to offer it to me, as you say. I just thought it would come to me on a plate. Someone's going to say, oh, you would be good at this specific career. And I'll be like, damn, you're right, I will do that. And inevitably that didn't happen, because you've got to figure that out yourself. Maybe people will give you little insights about where you, like an industry or something. Like, think if someone had said to you at 24, you'd be good in the financial industry, what would you have said? What's that?
Yeah.
I don't have any finances.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like I'd come into quite a bit of money 2 years before uni. When I left New Zealand, I had enough money that I could just travel the world and live off it for a couple of years. Or
how did you get that?
I could have put it away and invested it, and it would have been enough for me to retire off in my 50s. But I blew it up the wall in the space of about 18 months. And for me, that was an interesting thing about finance, right? Is learning how I could have handled that differently and been in a far different position now. And I would say learning all of that before you're 30 is still going to put you in a good position to retire when you want to. But the sooner you learn that, the better position you'll be in.
Yeah, for sure.
The direction that you've chosen, has it taken away that feeling of playing catch up?
I would love to say yes, but many self-employed people might feel this. I still look at people with quote unquote real jobs as like ahead of me, which is really, really annoying. So if I meet someone and they say, oh, I'm in marketing, or, I don't even know, sales or something like that, I feel like that's a real job. Whereas I feel like what I do, maybe that's a blessing that it doesn't feel like a real job, because I never have the feeling of having to go to work and dread that. I haven't had that for years, but I still feel like, oh, they're going down a career path, which is really strange, because I know I am too, but there's some sort of doubt within me where, I don't know, I feel like I'm just I'm doing really, really well and I'm happy with where I'm at, but from the outside, I feel like they are on a structured path, whereas I'm kind of just trying to get by, as strange as that sound. I guess there's less security is the underlying thing.
Yeah, obviously not to divulge too much personal information, but if you look at things on the percentage scale of your income that you're generating through your own businesses, you're going to be in the top percentile of people your age.
Yeah.
Do you think an element of this feeling of not being a real job is because your income streams are from your hobbies?
Yeah, that's probably a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
Because you love surfing and you've got a surf company and you've always been into fitness and you're a personal trainer.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon that could be a good way of putting it. Actually saying it out loud has made me think that could be the reason. Yeah. Great. Fixed. I mean, I make my own schedule. I work when I want. If I want to have a day off on Monday, I can pretty much do that. Which is obviously is for me is as wealthy as you can be almost, I don't have any bosses to report to. I have business partners that I chat with regularly and we get on really, really well. So that is, that's huge. I'm very, very grateful for that.
If you could talk to yourself at 23, 24, 25, that moment where we were feeling most lost, most underachieving and not fulfilling our potential, what would you say to yourself?
I'd say use the money you've just earned in Australia and put a deposit on house. I did not have the foresight or even understanding of money to do that. That's actually one thing I do regret, is that I had, a good amount saved up, enough for a deposit on a house, like could have gone in with my dad or something, should have done that. But anyway, I would say just trust yourself. Like what I always like to think about is when you're making big decisions, how many other times have you let yourself down in such a big way that it's affected your life? Like never really in my situation. I can't think of any times where I've had two paths to choose and chosen the wrong one so categorically bad that I super regret it, So believe in yourself in that way. I think that would be my main point. Yeah. And what else would I say to my 23-year-old self? I'd say go down paths where you aren't going to get bored again in a year or two. I think that's what's made me stay on this path for longer, because I've been on other paths before where inevitably I think it's great and the money's good or whatever, and within a year I feel like there's nowhere else to go, or I don't want to go down that route. So I know it's hard to say to a 23, 24-year-old, but look a little bit ahead as well than just the inevitable that's coming.
I think you're a good example of that good old cliche of do what you love and the money will follow.
Mm.
And you've done that. You've tried higher paying jobs that perhaps didn't fit you in a more corporate environment. But just by doing what you love, getting ridiculously good at surfing and taking people on surf tours around the world and having them pay you to do it, by just keeping fit for 13 years and having people line up to do that, you've shown that by becoming a master of a craft that you enjoy, that can bring you wealth as well.
Yeah, I like that. It's all about being aligned with who you are as a person, I think. If, like you mentioned earlier about trying to fit in with a group that you're not meant to fit in with, if you're trying to fit a square peg for a round hole, trying to get into a career path because the money's good, or you think it will give you status or whatever, you might do well for a while and you might get the income, but you're always going to feel that lack of contentment because it's not who you're supposed to be. I think if you feel like there's a path that you've always been thinking about going down, but you're just scared to, or you're worried about what people think, inevitably that's going to bring you more happiness and ultimately more, well, potentially not more income, but more self-fulfillment in the long run than trying to do something you're not meant to do.
How much of these issues that we were feeling at 23, 24, 25, do you feel like you've solved by literally solving them, right? Because I would say now you're fulfilling your potential. Now you've got a direction. You've also got an incredible family and base behind you, but those feelings still linger, right? So if solving the problem doesn't actually solve the mental problem, what are we supposed to do?
That's the tough one. And that's something I think about all the time because the goalposts don't stop moving. And well, they can stop moving, but it's so hard to stop them moving because there's always going to be a next income bracket or a nicer car or a bigger house or whatever. So yeah, I think trying not to keep up with the Joneses and looking what other people are doing on social media is really, really important. That's a trap where you're never going to win because there's always going to be someone that's more ripped than you or bigger than you or insert adjective here. I think practicing gratitude is really, really important, as kind of woo-woo as that might sound. That Susie and I are quite good at just getting to the end of the day and thinking, wow, that was, it might just be an ordinary day for us here, just going to the beach with Luca and having a nice dinner or whatever, but like actually thinking, wow, tonight was really, really nice. Like we need to take some time to think about that. And then I think setting smaller goals as well. I set myself an income goal for this year. I'm going to be very, very close. That does motivate me to get over that hurdle. But if your goal is 5 years down the line and it's to have $1 million in savings or whatever, it's going to be very, very hard to stay on that track. So setting smaller goals to build up to that would be my advice.
On setting goals, especially when it comes to financing, it's quite an easy example to use. I can't remember who I'm quoting here, which is one of my favorite things to say.
That's a quote from Tom Murray.
If you set yourself a goal of what financial bracket, for example, you would be happy with, remind yourself when you've got there that the goalposts don't need to move. As you say, there will always be another level to go to. And we have already achieved so many goals that we said would make us happy. Quoting Chris Williamson, I believe.
I know that guy.
Yeah. If you think you could live comfortably in an income bracket, if that figure for you is £50,000 a year, £100,000 a year, write it down and come back to it all the time, because I've already passed a few income brackets where I said that I would be happy.
Yeah.
And I think there has to come a point where you realize that not just body dysmorphia, income dysmorphia, achievement dysmorphia, there's a point where it's not practical anymore, right? We should be happy, but I would say we're probably two of the most self-flagellating people going. Like you said to me, you see people, you think, oh, they've got their lives so together. Like you've got a house in Portugal, you've got a girlfriend that you're both madly in love with each other, you've got a beautiful little boy, a dog, you've got so many people's idea of the perfect life.
Yeah.
And again, if you said to yourself 3 years ago, this is going to be your life in 3 years.
Yeah. There's 2 points there. One really kind of moment that sticks with me is we were in Costa Rica and it was sunset and we were just playing with Luca in the shallows, which sounds pretty dreamy, it was. But this French guy was like staring at us and we were like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And he actually came up and he said, do you mind if I take a picture of you guys? And we were like, he seemed kind enough. We were like, yeah, sure. And he was like, what you've got right there is actually my dream. And he was almost like tearing up. And I was like, oh God, that really hits home that it's actually tearing up a little bit there. That it is this is what some people are like waiting for forever, yeah. And the other thing was about when you've reached that income goal, what I'm doing right now is I'm pretty much at my income goal. I don't think adding an extra X will bring me that much more happiness. I'm trying to do less. So I've been working a lot trying to get to this number where self-employed people will relate to this, where I never feel off. Right now, I'm trying to schedule off times where I don't get to the end of the day and think, oh, I need to reply to that email or make that person's program or whatever. It's like Wednesday afternoons, I'm not doing anything. Next year, I'll go to a 4-day week, something like that. So if you can earn X next year and do 3.5 days instead of 5, that's a way bigger win in my opinion than adding an extra 20K or whatever. I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
What's most important to you now?
Most important is, I guess, standard dad answer, but being able to provide for the family and keep them as comfortable and as safe as possible. It is continuing to grow the businesses where we don't just get complacent with where we're at, because if you ask me where both businesses are at, like you were saying 2 years ago now, I wouldn't believe you, but now this is the norm. And being self-employed again, you have to keep that ball rolling. There's no one else that's going to do the work for you, right? So yeah, it's just keep incrementally growing a little bit year on year rather than getting complacent and stagnating or even regressing, which, is a possibility with any business, right?
You have to find that balance between not beating yourself up and constantly moving the goalposts ahead.
Yeah.
But, this is the whole theme of this show, feel like you are progressing and moving forward.
Yeah.
So as not to be sat there and stagnating. But I think you should be proud, man.
Cheers, man.
I think both of us have had a couple of moments of reflection over the last few years, and we've been through quite a lot together, seen each other through multiple relationships, different jobs, different countries.
Yeah.
And being out here and spending time with you has genuinely just made me feel proud.
Oh, thanks, man.
Not in like a big brother or dad way or anything like that, but just of us. And one of the things that we were saying last night is we can look back on all of the different things that we've done and they feel like lives completely separated.
People, yeah.
And if you can't do that, then have you really changed? Have you really grown? Like I look back on us at 18, 19, traveling in Bali and this stupid shit that I was doing. And it literally does feel like a lifetime ago. And to see where we are now kind of feels like adulthood or just a different life altogether.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I wish that I could say to myself at 23, 24, 25 that this is what's going to happen. You're going to look back on this period of your life as a period of discomfort and a period of growth, and you're going to get to where you want to be, and you're going to be fucking proud of yourself, and you're going to be fucking proud of your best friend as well. And you're going to go down completely different paths from what either of you think would be right for you.
Yeah.
But you'll both be happy.
That's the most important thing at the end of the day. I think what we spoke about last night is that if you don't look back at yourself 5, 8, 10 years ago and cringe a little bit, then you haven't transformed enough. You haven't grown enough. We were saying about people back home mainly, right? If they're stuck in the same job and doing the same shit, they're not going to cringe because they've probably got the same daily routine they had 8 years ago or 10 years ago. And maybe that does get a bit more consistent as you get a bit older, like into your 40s and stuff. That's a bit more inevitable, but the transformation between you at 20 and you at 30 should be large. If it's not enough to make you think, wow, what was I doing at 20? Or wow, look how far I've come at 30, then you need to step it up a little bit, I believe.
Let's narrow down the dysmorphias to body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
Because this is a good one that you and I have both had pretty mad bouts of over the years. And you now obviously train people for a living, and I'm sure you've got clients that suffer with it as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's such a tough one to bring up because a lot of people don't even know they have it. I guess particularly with women, it can come a lot down to their weight. Just the number on the scale dictates how they're feeling and their general happiness in life. If they lose 500 grams overnight, they're having the best day ever. And the next day they naturally fluctuate the other way and they have a terrible day. But I guess the body dysmorphia for us comes down to purely appearance. Mine definitely started when I was, well, they say the last time you're happy with your body is the first day before you step in the gym, right?
Yeah.
Which is horrendous because, a lot of reason why we train is to look and feel and move well. But there's a couple examples where I can really remember why it came to me, I think. One was my stepdad, who at the time was very, very in amazing shape. And I didn't train at all. I was like 15, had no idea, just football and stuff like that. And I remember him looking and saying, "Oh, mate, you need to get some meat on those arms, don't you?" Or something like that. And he would never think about that again. And neither would my mum. Like, they wouldn't have thought about it an hour later. But that's in my head 15 years later. And actually then my dad, said something similar, like, "Oh, you got good broad shoulders, but you got to get some meat on the arms," something like that. I was like, "What the fuck's going on?" Just trying to play football, have fun. But stuff like that rings true of you, and there'll be comments that people have made throughout the years that I can look back on. You know,
one's coming to me from Bali.
Yeah.
We went to Gili Trawangan and we were staying in a hostel with a pool, and I was with you and our friend Lex.
Yeah.
Both of you ripped 8 packs and shredded, and I was just sort of getting into training at that point.
I was just teaching you.
So I was still a bit skinny fat, and I think every day I was just training chest and arms over and over again. But we were in the pool, and there's a bridge going over the pool, and someone said, "Oh, how many pull-ups can you do off that?" And they were talking about how many you could do, and then one of the girls was like, "I could do more pull-ups than him," looking at me.
So I don't remember that.
No, so she won't remember that.
No.
Like, no one would remember that apart from me. But
Pull her out right now.
Yeah. You know who you are. But to be fair, like that was one of the things that spurred me on.
Yeah.
Another one, and I will call him out on this, one of my other best friends, Bradley Levers, we were in Australia, and at this point, it was probably a year later, I've been training consistently for a year. I was feeling in pretty good shape. He's talking about one of his friends, and he says, "Yeah, he's a big guy." I was like, "Oh, is he bigger than me?" He goes, "You're not big, mate."
Oh,
my heart.
sorry to hear. And yeah, for people that don't know it, it's when you look in the mirror and in your head, you don't look how you look, right? Like, you would walk in any gym now and you'd probably be one of the biggest guys in there, but how do you feel when you look in the mirror? Do you feel big?
Sometimes just at the belly, like.
And this, if you don't train, this sounds so strange, but yeah. it's a real thing. Like, and then it's all encompassing, right? Because if you're feeling out of shape or whatever, it's every meal, it's every bit of sport you do, it's every gym session that you miss, and that just all rolls into one and affects your mental health hugely. Male body dysmorphia is on track to overtake female body dysmorphia by next year or something, like within the next few years. And it's mainly, what do they call it? Muscle dysmorphia? No, it's something else. Big morphia or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. It's guys that train a lot and are very, very muscular, but they look in the mirror and do not appear muscular. That's the main form. And then the other form would be fat guys or bigger guys looking in the mirror, and even though they've lost a lot of weight, still feeling really, really obese, even though they're now not obese, but they've just got that image in their head.
I think David Goggins is a perfect example of that. The guy was like 300 pounds at one point and just still constantly self-flagellating himself, despite now being one of the fittest men on the planet.
Yeah.
I think this is another one of those examples. Like, set yourself a money goal. If I earn this much and have this standard of living, that will be enough for me. And design your dream physique. Once you will hit that sooner than you think. You could be there in 1 to 2 years, because I don't think anyone listening is trying to be Mr. Olympia. But if you don't, you will constantly keep comparing it, because I think, honestly, if when I was 18, 19, I picked my dream physique, I was probably there at 22, 23. I have felt like shit about my physique since then, even though it's consistently improved.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can ever win when you choose aesthetic goals. You're always going to be able to have a little bit more capped shoulders, slightly bigger triceps, more defined abs. Like, when it comes to visual goals like that, it's really, really hard. I mean, one thing that has helped me in the past is kind of functional goals, where I set strength targets or performance targets or whatever. And that can be quite rewarding, because you can always keep improving on that. That's why I think like hybrid training is so big right now, people running and lifting, because naturally, if you've lifted for 10 years, the marginal gains you're getting are very, very marginal. You might get 5 pounds more on your bench in a year or something, you know, whereas when you run, you can actually chip away pretty much every session, or you can do a different distance or a different modality, and you can get that feeling of having accomplished something. Whereas those of you or us that have trained for many years, there aren't many wins anymore. No. Except when I absolutely smash you at pull-ups. That was a big win.
I'm glad I could provide that for you. I agree. And that feeling of being plateaued in the gym sucks. Like, you're going and you're dragging yourself out of bed at 6 a.m. 4 or 5 days a week to go to the gym, so that at the end of the year, you can be exactly the same weight and just lift 5 pounds more. Like, it starts to feel like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people, you know, end up turning to steroids and abuse those. And then they start comparing themselves to other brackets, right? Instead of comparing themselves to people who have slightly similar physiques and just seeing the big juice heads in the gym as something separate that they don't compare themselves to, you start comparing yourself to people that you are slightly more similar to.
Yeah.
And that will change. So, for example, now I compare my physique to people that I see on Instagram who are professional bodybuilders and everything else. And again, that just constantly leaves me feeling inadequate.
It's impossible not to, though, right? It's shoved down your face. If I click on my Explore page, it's just ripped guys and girls, the whole thing. And that's something that's only happened in the last, 10 years or something. Like 25 years ago, if you were ripped in your town, you'd be known as the guy that's really muscular and really fit. And in your area, you would be like top 0.01%. And now even if you are in that great shape or even better shape than you were a year ago, you feel like you're in the bottom 10% because you're comparing yourself to the elite on Instagram, which is, tricky.
Social media has made the world feel so much smaller.
Yeah.
As you say, you're not comparing yourself to your town, your village, your county anymore. You're comparing yourself to what you spend 4 to 9 hours a day on, depending on
how many hours do you spend a day?
Yeah, my screen time is currently 9 hours a day on my phone.
8 hours on Hinge.
That's not factual. Yeah, and that's something that since being in Portugal, I've kind of enjoyed, is I've definitely wound back on that a lot. But since the social media thing's picked up, I felt this obligation to be on there because I'm trying to build this podcast and so many people are interacting with it. And I posted a story on the way over to Portugal, just letting everyone know that I was feeling a bit overwhelmed at the moment. I had a lot on my plate and I was well aware that I had 200 unread messages on Instagram, which I needed to go through and reply to people because a lot of them are really helpful, lovely people offering me feedback on the podcast or just support on it.
Yeah.
And then that story got 300 fucking replies. So now I have 500 unread messages on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's like this feeling that I have to be spending time on there to go through it. But it's not benefiting my mental health.
No, 100%.
Feeling like I have to be doing that. I don't think it's benefiting my real life relationships.
No, for sure.
Spending so much time on my phone.
It's tricky though when work and social media combine. Like I guess in my case as well, because I get the dopamine hit if I make a sale or get a call or someone's booked a renegade trip. I'm looking for that high. Like if I had to remove my inbox from my phone because I was checking my emails like I'd say sometimes 100 times a day. Like it would just be on my rotation, Insta, Messenger, inbox. Like I don't need to check my fucking inbox 100 times a day. Not my personal one, not any of them. That's it. I'm still looking for the answer there because I don't know what it is. Because I can't delete Instagram. My plan was to put it only on the iPad and just have it in the office, but never got around to it.
I set myself little obstacles all the time. But then beating the obstacles becomes second nature as well. What I mean by that, for example, is there's a setting on your phone, and I learned this from Alex Hormozy, where you can change the color scheme so that it's just black and white, which means that Instagram looks boring because there's no color in the reels. It's all black and white, and it can help you get around it. And then occasionally I would say, all right, now I'm going to spend half an hour on Instagram and let myself relax. I'll turn the color scheme off. And then that happened a bit more regularly. And then it got to the point that I was subconsciously going color scheme, back to color, to Instagram before I even had a chance to think about it, right? And it'd be other things like hiding the icons in certain folders, but then that becomes muscle memory. So I think you need to constantly just keep pushing it further away. And for example, I have the YouTube for Growth game, which I just watch other podcast creators and stuff like that on. And then I have my personal algorithm, which has got the junk YouTube stuff that I watch on there. So I signed out of that on the app. So I was thinking, right, I'll have to physically sign into it on the internet, on the browser. And now I'm doing that without even thinking about it.
I've done that with my emails. Actually. It's tragic.
You're just constantly fighting yourself.
I don't even know what the answer is. There's Opal. Have you ever tried that?
I've heard about it. It's supposed to reduce your screen time. Right?
You set timers on apps and they're fully blocked unless it's an emergency. But let's be honest, you're just going to probably put us in an emergency. It's an emergency. I need to see what my stories are doing. There's that Balance phone. Do you ever get targeted by those ads? It's like an old school phone with black and white screen, but you can still. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's meant to provide balance. But then I saw it had a what's the one where crowdfunded and then it didn't come together or something. But I feel like soon there will be a simple iPhone or something like that. You can take out, still use maps, banking, text, and then you have I would love that. I think I don't need to be checking Instagram on my walk to school with my son, like what the fuck am I doing?
You need to just keep making these micro adjustments to try and change your habits and make them more difficult to fall into bad habits and easier to fall into easy ones. but then your brain is so good at chasing that cheap dopamine and rewiring it, right?
Yeah, hugely.
Let's go on to the fitness side of things. That is one of the things you've managed to stay pretty consistent with your whole life. Like your period.
Due to crippling body dysmorphia.
It does have its
genuinely,
times. You've generally always managed to keep yourself in shape, and the periods where you felt skinny fat, you'd still be in a lot of people's dream shape at that point.
Yeah.
What do you think the importance is on staying in shape for your mental health and for your productivity?
Yeah, good question. For me, if I'm what I would call out of shape, I'm not in a good place. Like I really feel bad about myself. It affects my work, stuff like that. Every meal I have, not that I'm ever like binging, like some people might be used to it. It just snowballs from there, and it's a tough place to get out of. Sounds very cliche, but the last time that happened, I did hire a coach, and that gave me the accountability I needed to get out. So you can follow BTY Coaching if you're looking for coaching. With regards, sorry, can you say the question again? With regards to habits, wasn't it?
With regards to your productivity and regards to your mental health.
Yeah. I think, sorry, mate, I've totally lost the question. We'll edit this bit out. Go again.
What is the importance of fitness on...
Okay, yeah, that's right, yeah.
What is the importance? All right, now we're going to have to fucking edit this.
We've got to pay the guy for something.
What is the importance of fitness on your mental health and your productivity?
Yeah. It's huge for me, obviously. I think now I'm a dad, I kind of view it a little bit differently. I see there's a lot of like quite older dads in there, Sarah, that are not old, but they're 10 years, 15 years older than me, and they've got kids the same age. And I'm like, in 10 years, are you going to be able to keep up with your son as well as that? So that's my kind of motivation right now, is to be able to, well, obviously I will be able to, but make sure I can stay in that shape where I can play with Luca when he's 18, or 15. Might be weird when he's 18. I meant play sports. Really. I just don't want him to beat me at tennis when he's 18, that's all. From a mental health side of things, there's a direct correlation between how productive I am and how switched on I am when I'm in shape. Like everything else snowballs from there. You know this feeling. When you're feeling fit and you're feeling good and you're feeling confident, I think that's the main term. Everything else tends to move in alignment, I feel, because it's such a big part of my life. Whereas when I'm maybe training, definitely training less, not eating as well, I can see there's other little areas that slip away a little bit, and then you begin to snowball downwards, right? And I guess, working in the fitness industry, it's kind of ironic because people think that we're the most in check. And of course we are in check, but we've got such high standards that we don't feel as aligned as we should be. So if I don't hit I've set it to 4 training sessions a week at the minute, just to be realistic. If I'm on session 3 and it's Sunday, I feel like I've let myself down. And for most people, 3 sessions a week is, something that they're aiming for. So it's one that's constantly evolving.
How does having a coach help with the accountability? Because you're obviously coaching, 50 people a week.
Yeah.
And you're also having a coach yourself. Why?
Yeah, people often, sometimes people think it's strange that I have a coach when I'm a coach, but a lot of other coaches have coaches. There's not one elite coach at the top that's like coaching everyone. It's a web of coaches all looking for that accountability. And accountability is a word that's thrown around all the time, and people often don't know what it means. But an example of accountability is me receiving a message on Thursday morning from my coach saying, "Hey mate, I see you've done 1 session this week. All good?" Something like that. And that for me is enough to say, "Hey man, I've slipped off. I didn't train yesterday. I don't know, worked instead. I'll get the remaining sessions done that week." And for me, if that's enough to get 3, 4, my desired numbers of sessions done a week, it's worth the amount that I'm investing each month for sure. Humans need that person to make sure they're doing stuff. We are monkeys at heart, aren't we? And if I need to put a couple $100 away to ensure that I do that, even though I am a disciplined and motivated guy, then it's worth every penny, in my opinion.
I definitely agree. And I actually spoke about you on another recent podcast, and I haven't mentioned this bit to you either, but we were talking about the accountability. And one of the things that, again, I remember, you probably won't remember this.
I'm sorry.
But we were in Plymouth University. It was a dark and miserable day, 1 December or something like that. And you walked into my room. You didn't even knock at 2 p.m. And I was still in bed. I had my laptop on. My room was an absolute shit tip. There's stuff everywhere. And you walked in and you started shaking your head and tutting. And I was feeling shit. I was feeling sorry for myself. And I was like, "What do you want?" And you were like, "I'm just looking how the other half live." And genuinely, you need that. You need you need a friend that's going to call you on your bullshit and be like, mate, sort it out.
Yeah.
Like, and you've done that for me. And I'm sure you do that for a lot of your clients as well. And I can see why you also want that for yourself.
Yeah. It goes both ways as well, right? The accountability can also be that positive reinforcement. If I send a check-in form to someone on a Monday or a check-in video, mate, you smashed everything last week, you hit your nutrition targets, you trained more than you asked to, and your progress photos are looking great. That's a fucking good way to start a Monday. Like that's going to, again, snowball in a positive way for you to kick another week. So it's not just, people think the accountability is me cracking the whip and making sure people do things. It's certainly not. It goes both ways. Having that, someone give you a nice feedback on a week or whatever is really, really nice as well.
Why online?
Yeah, good question. Online, well, one-to-one versus online, they both have the pros and cons, of course. One-to-one, I still do a little bit here in Sarah, do maybe 8-9 hours a week. And for the people that live here and they need that appointment in their diary of I am training at Monday at 10 a.m., that's an extra layer of accountability to make sure they get their session done. Perhaps they're not as well trained as the people online as well, so they need people checking their form. They want me there just to make sure they're doing it safely, and they enjoy it. They've got the cash, why not splash out and have someone there for an hour of your time? So if you have the cash and you have the time and you have the availability, one-to-one is superior for some people. Online is better for many people because first, it's more affordable. Secondly, it's far more flexible. You can go and train whenever you want. You just need to get your sessions done during that week. And you still benefit from the knowledge, experience, and accountability of that coach for the remaining 167 hours that week or whatever it is. So that's where one-to-one, in my opinion, falters, is that you're with that coach for 1-2 hours a week. Go do what you want the rest of the time, pretty much. We're not looking at your nutrition, your habits, your sleep, your steps, stuff like that. Whereas online is all encompassing. Training is a part of that, but food is, your steps are, your habits. Habits are a big one that people often forget about. The whole ethos of my coaching platform it's called Better Than Yesterday. It's little compound or changes that compound over time. Worst thing I can do for a client is to change everything in the first week. Say, this is what you're eating, these are your steps, and they're going to inevitably do it for a day and then they're going to fall off slowly. Whereas if I can start someone who's currently doing 2,000 steps a day and get them up to 5,000 for a week, they're going to feel good, they're going to feel accomplished, and then they say, hey, let's try 6.5 next week. And they chip away. And I got a guy right now who was doing no steps. He was really struggling to lose weight, taking off like 12.5K now, or 12.5K a day. And he's like 10 kg down in 3 months or something. So little changes like that, not just with steps, but nutrition and everything are really, really key. To be honest, that's more what gets people in shape, as strange as that sounds. We're in shape because we have the habit of going to train. It's non-negotiable for us, right? If someone can get in the habit of moving more, snacking less, eating a higher protein diet, and working on their mental health because of these things that are compounding, then they're going to get in shape anyway, even if they weren't training or not, to be honest. That's just the icing on the cake, depending on their goal.
I'll pop the link to your online coaching in the description
below.
So anyone that is looking for an online coach to keep them accountable, go and check out on Dale. And genuinely, he taught me a lot of what I am still doing today in the gym. And I am bigger and stronger than him now, but it wasn't always that way.
How many pull-ups did you do? Let's talk about 3 sets of pull-up maxes. I'll give you the strength. Yeah, you're strong.
Moving swiftly on. All right. So fitness, just picking something and do it. If there is anyone else feeling where we were, in our 20s, feeling lost and looking for some direction, what other important factors should they focus on?
I think having a network of people that we spoke about this at the start, it might be hard to find if you're in freaking Derby and you don't have any friends there or whatever, but having a network of people that are into the same sort of interests as you, and hopefully that's something to do with self-development and trying to improve yourself. I know a lot of people get that loneliness where they're in a part of a group and they feel like their friends are happy where they are, and it's tricky for them to then level up because it's tall poppy syndrome, right? This is prominent in the UK. I really, really noticed this when I go back. If you've done something well, people will be like, oh, you get it when you go back. Like, here's Tom with his 40,000 followers. Oh, what a dickhead. What's the need there? In the States or somewhere else, people are like, oh my God, you're doing so well on social media. That's amazing. Like, it's this British people particularly like to cut people down that are sticking above the rest. So I think if you're in a group with that, it would be eradicating that and trying to find people that are aligned with, even if that's online, if that's through different communities that exist online now, I think that could be really, really good. I think, the network you're around, a big I'm going to shout her out, because a big reason that I ended up leveling up so hard was because of my partner. And I got really, really lucky that she's amazing and has taught me a lot about money beliefs and just generally happiness and gratitude and everything. But yeah, without having her on my side, I would have really, really struggled. So of course, that's a hard thing to do, is find that person like that. But a couple people in your network that are on a similar path, it would be really, really important.
Amazing. Dale, it's been a journey.
It's not over yet, bro.
It's not. I'm sure, another 12, 14 years time, we'll be sat here reviewing it again, and hopefully it's all positive.
Like, where did it all go so wrong? No.
Mate, I want to sign off with something that I was talking to my last podcast guest about, which is Angus Cook. And we spoke about men's mental health. And we spoke about this stigma with men expressing gratitude or emotion with each other. So I just want to sign off by saying thank you for everything over the years, and I love you.
Cheers, man. Love you too. You should be very, very proud of yourself where you're at. And yeah, I think we'll laugh at where you're at right now in 10 years in a good way. So yeah, it's only up from there.
Let's hope so. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, man.